We are live. This is the market update. Is AI a bubble? Is it? It might not be. It might not be. In other words, if people are spending money like as a build out, and if the orange man takes a stake in quantum computing, which is on Zero Hedge this morning, meaning, the US government is going to start buying the stocks of companies that actually are a bubble. It might not be a bubble yet. It's also out there that OpenAI, even though for every dollar they make, they have to spend $3 to do it. What happens if that's okay because they have artificial general intelligence and beyond in a test tube? They just can't launch it because they don't have the hardware. In other words, the world may be farther along and more advanced than you can imagine. So question, stick around for this. What happens if 2025, as one of my former colleagues says, is the last normal year? Meaning, what happens if they release some type of radical artificial general intelligence and Elon's third generation robot changes the world radically within 6 months? Now, you're undoubtedly asking yourself, which is why you want to stay, what does this have to do with crypto? It has everything to do with crypto. If we are about to go full futurism, if the parabolic ascent in like chip companies and all the companies involved in the build out, not the guys who are spending all the money, but the people who are getting the money for the build out, the chip companies, right? The computing power. What happens if that's only beginning? How do you reconcile the fact that everything over there in equities is radically higher in value than just about anything in crypto, including Bitcoin? In other words, the future over there is about to go sci-fi. We're talking about equities, companies, anything related to, the AI world is going sci-fi. And what are we doing? Here's what we're doing. Whales are shipping Bitcoin to exchanges. They've shipped about 1 billion so far, according to CryptoQuant. So if you're wondering why Bitcoin goes up to 112 and then gets slammed, whales are selling. Market makers have problems after the crash. And here we are looking at the world, right, through our little lens, leverage day trading. Meanwhile, the future is here. It is. And that's got to mean Bitcoin. And frankly, everything else that goes with it, including the AI coins, including the DeFi coins. Working on something for Patreon. Fetch versus Tau. Which one should you buy? Some surprising answers along with TA levels. Speaking of TA, nice little rally we got going on today in Solana, huh? The future is creeping up on humanity. At the same time, humanity is walking away from crypto. Crazy. You will need a decentralized world, right? When the robots and the machines start teaching themselves how to get better. For example, why sell Ethereum? Why sell a network you could run the internet on? Why sell something advanced when Google AI has 2 cancer research breakthroughs in a week? 2. Meanwhile, at the macro ranch, because you're going to want to hear this, not only is gold going up, But Swiss government bonds now have a negative yield. And you're like, what does that mean? That means people are so freaked out that they're taking their Swiss francs and they're paying the Swiss government to effectively hold their Swiss francs. Like, here, guys, I'll pay you to hold them and just give me the IOU so I can get the money back. I will pay you to hold my money. Now, what is that about? Well, perhaps somewhere in the banking system, we have bad loans. And we kind of know this. It's kind of everywhere. Now, the equity market doesn't care because this AI build out is gigantic. It's beyond what I thought it was. And actually, I think it's way bigger than whatever bubble retail has going on Robinhood. Like, yeah, Beyond Meat's 10x because it became a meme stock. Okay, in the bigger picture, so what? I think you have to start asking yourself, when retail comes out of the bubble stocks, whether it's a crash or it's not, they're going to find crypto, right? The world is in the mood for Momo, ironically, at a time when we're all selling crypto. Now, again, back to this macro stuff. Gold, they seem to be eating the dip. It's not crashing. So they're eating the dip in gold and they're paying the Swiss government to hold your money. And then the triple shot is, this is the last normal year, which means you're going to have a problem with jobs, job growth. You know, when the AI trade becomes scary. And this has to bring in the Fed. I mean, how can you have an employment situation that is a mess and credit markets that are too tight? Now, again, getting this from my former colleague, if you take the undervaluation of crypto, this is what you need to know. So just stay here. If you take the undervaluation of crypto, you take the fact that everyone in crypto is selling, people are so depressed, it's absolutely mind-boggling. What happens when the Fed has to come in and then they make a deal with China? And this whole trade war thing is nothing more than geopolitical theater. In other words, can you dare use your imagination and get to a point where things settle down with the Chinese because people have to calm down with these rare earth metals and other things? Like, we just kind of have to all calm down. What happens if that gets resolved? After all, that is what was connected to this giant Binance fail and the ensuing crash. What happens if that comes to an end? It was dropped on us suddenly, and what happens if it goes away? In other words, I could sit here and tell you all the negative things in crypto, like, you know, whales are selling, you know, market makers are a mess. We talked about some of that yesterday. Bitcoin miners appear to be massively overbought. But even if you look at those negatives, think about the sentiment. Think about what happens if Bitcoin has to work for 3 or 4 days, because we got kind of a new roadmap that we're going to be coming out with in Patreon. I'm going to be running it by Toby in the YouTube member area. What happens? What happens if this thing builds a base between like 112 and 107, and then Bitcoin exits the top of the range? You've already got Solana moving. You had Zcash move. How long do you think it's going to take on a break through the 50-day moving average at 112 for this thing to be off to the races? Like, how many days can they hit it? How many days can they bleed out altcoins? Well, the real answer is every day they can do it because they're afraid of something. But at the moment when they're not afraid, this is my question. And this is a very important thing to consider. Do you have the right bag? Because I got news for you. This thing with the 4-year cycle, I got a video coming out in like 3 hours. The 4-year cycle is nonsense. It is over. It's over, right? Because this AI build out changes the nature of Bitcoin from some speculative toy to the future. And then there's all the rest of crypto that can go with it. There's all this talk that, a huge chunk of crypto is fake. Really? Okay. Well, let's talk about what's not fake. First, Zcash moved. Then Monero is moving this morning, right? If OpenAI really has Skynet in a test tube, privacy is of the essence. Do you see this laughable thing from Coinbase? We're going to have a private stablecoin where sovereigns can only read only. So don't worry, they can't come in and take it. They can just see it and come knock on your door. The antivirus guys, tokenomics, and there could be volatility in the antivirus token, but they're doing a monster airdrop of a pre-mined privacy coin that's going to be used to mint private stable coins using Monero and Zcash as collateral. This privacy narrative is not going anywhere. And I don't think anyone is putting 2 and 2 together, because their bags bleed. And every time it goes up, some market maker or somebody trying to make their living on 200x leveraged knocks everything back down again. But you have to notice that as soon as people get done selling, i.e. Solana, boom, you get a 5% pop. And if you get that in Bitcoin and all these alts are sold out and people are just so depressed. I mean, I get on this every day. I got to admit something. You want to hear some honesty? You want to hear something real? I'll give you something real. Yesterday, this got to me, like for real. I was like, oh my God, I can't look at this anymore. I'm losing it. So if that's the way you feel, welcome to the bottom. Somewhere in here, there's a bottom, because you cannot have the world radically changing in 3 months or now. I mean, Elon's 3rd generation robot, I don't know what the release date is, but you can't have 2 cancer research breakthroughs in a week and sit around and say the world isn't changing. The world is changing, right? Radically. So this whole idea that, okay, yeah, all altcoins are bad or it's all going to go to zero, I don't think so. I think that's an incredibly myopic point of view, again, particularly since the Fed has to come in and save banks. And the Fed is probably going to have to get real about what's going on with jobs and stay here. They're talking about helicopter money in Japan, and Bessent is hinting at helicopter money. What's helicopter money? Stimulus checks or tax refunds. They already know what is going to happen with AI. They're going to start dropping universal basic income now. And you want to hear a radical prediction? Here's a radical prediction. So what did the orange man do? First he pumped crypto. Then he took a break from that. Then he started pumping Intel. He started pumping rare earth metal companies. He's looking at Greenland. What happens when these guys figure out that the only way to save Christmas is to pump crypto? What happens? I mean, is that not possible, that people could not only accept crypto for Christmas, but you could have these guys coming in and generating the wealth effect? Speaking of the wealth effect, if you want to hear something funny, here's a funny. Did you know, because I was there and I looked it up this morning and gave it to the Patreon chats, did you know that the Nasdaq bubble went vertical the week of October 18th, 1999? So between the 18th and the 25th of October in 1999, that's when the Nasdaq internet bubble actually became a bubble and went vertical. Now, I realize there are a whole lot of things going on in equities that are ridiculous. There's a lot. But what happens if that type of vertical repeat comes in certain stocks or in crypto? It's happened before where the bubble becomes a bigger bubble. I mean, I'm just taking the other side of the world, right? Whales are selling Bitcoin. Everyone's afraid of a stock market crash. But meanwhile, the build out for AI is gigantic. And yeah, okay, you could have something stupid happen with the banks, but is Bessent and the Fed really going to allow that to happen? In other words, guys like me are all over Twitter like, oh my God, the sky is falling. The bubble's going to blow up. The NVIDIA CEO is selling. Okay. Maybe we should be talking instead about what we want to buy and not what we want to sell. Instead of talking about what's wrong, like, everybody panicking and wanting the Swiss government to hold their money, negative interest rates. What happens if we focus on the fact that the real solution for humanity to all this starts with Bitcoin, filters into privacy, Zcash, Monero, Ethereum and Solana as the layer one, XRP as fast money, and I'm never going to get off of that. Not to mention that there's a whole host of layer ones that machines aren't going to trade just on one network. Machines are not going to trade in fiat. Machines are not going to buy gold. Gold is a central bank reserve asset. It's a part of the foreign exchange market. It's not a network. And we're about to have things related to networks like this AI singularity moment, as one of my former colleagues says. Meanwhile, we are selling crypto. And I think what should be going on is that you got to ask yourself, like, how do I get in the next bag? Like, I just can't believe I got a good chart formation in Monero, right? I can't believe that there are parts of crypto that have been going up for like a week while everybody, has been selling the consensus coins. I get it, because that's what market makers had when they got caught in this crash. But in so many ways, we're making the ultimate low. We're making the ultimate low, because if they do a trade deal, and then this morning it's out that, guys who are shorting certain types of like ridiculously overvalued quantum computing stocks, literally the headline is as if millions of shorts suddenly cried out in terror, right? The administration is effectively sending a message, regardless of what they do. They're basically telling people, don't get short. Don't burst the bubble. It's a form of intervention. Like, they're trying to hold the market up. And if they actually do a deal with China, isn't that Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, Happy Holidays? Is Santa going to bring us a present and we're looking the other way? Like, are we being naughty in crypto? Is 108 Bitcoin a gift, or 109 Bitcoin a gift? While all these characters sell, is the bid switching from, say, Zcash to Bitcoin, or from, say, Zcash to Monero? Right? Every day that we come in, so stay with me. Every day that we come in, and even if crypto trades terrible, even if they try and smash it, every day that it doesn't crack and turn into a crash is a good day. It's one day closer to everybody waking up and realizing that they got to buy the future. They got to buy the future right now. In other words, if you're wondering, because I've been wondering, after this crash, after all this nonsense that's gone on and this terrible price action, like, what makes all this go up? Like, we know it's undervalued. We know I've been blah, 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 blah. We know about the Fed. We know about the banks. We know all this. What actually makes it go up? Well, it's got to be some kind of DeepSeek, Tesla robot, some sort of AI moment combined with the fact that the Fed has to come in, or they have to come in with stimulus checks or something. Helicopter money for somebody. Either the Fed does it for the market or the administration and Congress do it for you, assuming they ever open that place again. Right? This thing where everybody is worried about dollar lending, every day that this goes on means the Fed comes in bigger and bigger and bigger. Every day they wait, right? Like Arthur Hayes is on the tape screaming about what's going on in Japan, that the answer to their printed money problem is to actually hand out money directly to the citizens to cover food and energy bills, which are parabolic over there. I mean, this is like the new math. And I don't understand how that isn't massively bullish for cryptocurrency in every sense of the word. In other words, I understand that what you want to hear about is altcoins. Your bags are filled with altcoins and they trade terrible. Okay. Well, I can't change that right this second, but I am wondering what happens if Bitcoin sometime between now and, the contest in New York City in early November, I'm wondering between now and then, what happens if you have a Bitcoin takeoff? What's going to happen to your bags if like Bitcoin just turns around and breaks out? Like if gold can't make a new high, I think you start a countdown in Bitcoin to launch. Because, Bitcoin is a tiny asset if you compare it to the Magnificent Seven. If you compare it to the amount of money that's being spent globally to build AI. I mean, there's stories already out that auto executives from the United States are going to China and they're going into what are called dark factories. Factories where robots are building cars and there's no humans in the building so they can keep the lights off because robots are just building cars by themselves. This is like really happening. And they're coming home going, oh my God, what are we going to do? I mean, are those robots going to trade fiat? They're going to trade, whatever bricks paper that they create? No. These machines are going to start figuring out how to teach themselves quickly. And when this hits the tape, right, because it doesn't matter until it does. When it hits the tape, right, and then retail realizes that ramping meme stocks like Beyond Meat, right, and then all these things that have like 10x'd, this is important, so listen. All of that volatility, all of that energy that's in capital markets trading the future has to move over to crypto because the energy doesn't go away. I mean, if everything was range trading and it was all dead, then you could be down in the mouth. I went through that actually before the orange man got elected. That's what happened. All markets went completely dead. But that's not what's happening. You have like insane parabolic action going on in equities. You have insane parabolic action in Bitcoin mining stocks because they've borrowed money and kind of pivoted towards AI, resulting in their stocks 5xing. So Bitcoin mining used to be like a value investing play. Now I'm like, well, I think you got to like dump that and buy Bitcoin. But again, who knows? How can you have parabolic action in Bitcoin mining stocks and Bitcoin going down and whales who believe in Bitcoin selling because they're doing this idiotic 4-year cycle math for when Bitcoin was some, toy currency? Like when it was like, I don't know. It was like an intellectual curiosity. Now it's money. So everyone's going to sell. Everyone's going to bail. No one realizes that, like take the 2021 top, as my colleague pointed out, the only reason Bitcoin didn't go to 100K in 2021 was because the Fed started a massive tightening cycle because they printed too much for COVID. That's what stopped Bitcoin. And of course, then that turned into FTX. But that's gone now. And the fact that there was this Binance thing that I discussed yesterday, I woke up today and I'm like, why did I even talk about that? Like, they shook this market to its core, and Solana is still at 180. Solana's fine. Monero and the privacy coins are up 5% today, right? Layer 2s are up 5%. You know, AI coins are at least moving, right? NOS is up 8% at the moment, right? Fetch.AI, which was a dead project. The biggest AI project was dead, looked dead 2 days ago, to the point where I wasn't blaming anybody for selling it. And then I'm doing a report for the Patreon group. And ironically, the AI in Fetch versus Tau has some surprising things to say about Fetch, or artificial super intelligence token, which is a nice way of saying that research into cryptocurrencies is revealing value is out there, and everyone is sleeping on the tech part of crypto. Anybody heard of DePin? Anybody heard of coins where AI agents are on chain, like virtuals? Anybody remember that? The news headline is about the Base Network's private stablecoin. What a joke. But no one's talking about virtuals. Mainly because, of course, the price action is terrible, and I understand that. I understand, but there are DeFi plays like Syrup. They're up 6% this morning. What do you think machines are going to do with all the stable coins? Where do you think all the ETH and Solana and all that stuff's going to go? They're going to go looking for yield. They're going to go looking for decentralized finance. Propy, a housing coin, was up 20% yesterday. And Clearpool, which is a lender from Just Dario, who's the macro guy that's on top of all this stuff in the banking industry, right? And gold, was also up 20% at one point yesterday. If you have a fundamental catalyst in these altcoins, even though they absolutely trade terrible, you know when individual coins are all sold out, like Solana today. It just literally goes straight up. Jason Chun is here. Welcome, sir. Rave Song Records. Zepedas, a member. Mojo in the house. Sir, Zen Trader. Right? Welcome, members. MJ Hits. Fuzz Crypto. Bull Runner first on the stream. Plenka. Welcoming everybody. Haven Peck. Emberlin. I'm leaving. It's boring. See what I'm saying? Everybody doesn't want to hear about it. It doesn't matter until it does. And guess what? It matters. Want to welcome everybody, Aaron, everybody who's on TikTok and YouTube. That is the market update for today. We will see you tomorrow.